All right, so I know what you're thinking if you see the title of this video. Didn't Chuck Schuldiner shit the bed with songwriting like way more than 5 times? Well, he absolutely did. But what I want to focus on with this video is him shitting the bed on riff 2. So if you'll notice, the songs that I'm choosing for the video are in the second half of the Career of Death. And I did that because I wanted to showcase how much of a travesty it is that you can make it that long making music and still not figure out how to piece a song together. The way things kind of just fall off on a lot of his arrangements, like he'll establish a motif with the guitar and then drop everything out and then introduce a completely different theme. It might have a similar tonality because everything that he's written kind of has the same kind of like scalar sensibility. He relies on fifths for pretty much all of his riff construction, but the momentum usually just falls right off. So I want to start with See Through Dreams from the album Human, and he establishes the theme, then just decides to just shit the bed and just toss it out the window, go somewhere else. So let's give this a listen. See, and that's what I'm talking about right there. You know, you have this locomotive of emotion just rushing at the listener, and it's just, you have this intensity there that, you know, obviously you can peel back layers of intensity, add layers of intensity throughout the arrangement of your song, and that's something you want to do to make a sense of a journey happen, but just stopping everything completely and then going into a different kind of rhythm, different kind of feel, you've really lost the plot. Like, how do these two riffs relate to each other? They don't. And it's just surprising that someone that has such respect in the metal community and the guitar community, people aren't going to really notice this kind of stuff. But as I started to analyze metal songwriting, as a kid, this stuff, the death material, really stuck out to me as something that I felt really was pretty piecemeal. And it's just surprising. But that's all I want to say on this particular song. We're going to get through quite a few of them, so I want to keep it rolling. But yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's just, I just don't understand the mindset of it. I don't understand the mindset of establishing that kind of a motif, that kind of a driving sense of rhythm, just to stop it completely and then go on to something that doesn't relate to it. I imagine, you know, he had a different lineup for every record, and I imagine that this kind of shit is why. I mean, sitting down with bandmates and being like, here's what's going to happen, and I'm Chuck Schuldiner, so don't fucking doubt it. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get this riff going, and it's going to build to something, and then just when you think it's going to matter and go somewhere else, we're just going to fucking shit the bed and start over with something else. I totally get why he didn't have a long-term lineup. All right, well, let's move on to the next one. Okay, this next one is Out of Touch from Individual Thought Patterns. So once again, you have just a complete break in mood. And I understand wanting to shift the dynamics to throw the listener off It's a common songwriting trope. You don't want to be predictable with your songwriting. You want to take them somewhere, but you also don't want it to be obvious. Like a pop song arrangement is going to go the same places every time with different kind of verses and choruses plugged into it. Um, what's going on here is he's establishing this like ethereal intro. It's got this chromatic aspect to it where you kind of feel like you're being lulled. You kind of feel like you're falling a little bit, and then it's like the alarm goes off, and you're just like, "What the fuck is happening?" And you have that type of suffocation style with the where he ends up doing like the chokes on the cymbals, and it introduces a new theme, and then they don't go into that theme, and then they kind of bring that theme back a little bit, so it's really just a mess. Like this is the start of your song. You want to establish, at the very least, a mood. If you're not going to continue with your themes, you got to establish at least some kind of a mood. And he takes that mood and just throws it right out the window and startles the fuck out of you, and then doesn't continue with the theme in any way. And this is on the next record after Human. So he's got another couple of years of songwriting prowess under his belt. But this is what happens when you have that sense of ego where you are going to be the single songwriter in your band and you can't keep a lineup. There is no doubt in my mind that he just didn't want to listen to anyone else, most likely in any kind of band setting. If any suggestions were given, chances are he was just like, fuck it, this is the song. If you don't like it, there's the door. I'll get someone new by the next record, which he did. But this is the kind of stuff that, I do believe that when you introduce many cooks in the kitchen and you have a lot of the band members contributing towards a song or contributing towards a record, you kind of dilute a vision naturally. It's going to be pretty rare that any two people are going to have the same artistic vision, let alone people that find themselves within the same band. So I understand the need to have a single solitary songwriter in most kind of outfits. But in a lot of those settings, there's still going to be collaboration on arrangement, like in Metallica. Or you're going to have band members telling you, hey man, that kind of sounds fucked up. Like maybe we shouldn't do it. But I don't think that he was having any of that criticism. Otherwise, stuff like this just wouldn't have happened. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, we're going to keep rolling with the Individual Thought Patterns record with The Philosopher. So the only thing that carried in there was the tempo. I don't understand the need for an intro like this. They don't do it again later on. It doesn't relate to any of the motifs or the themes or anything that you're going to be hearing in the song. The only thing I could think of that would make that something that belongs here is the subject matter of the song being about a former bandmate and disagreeing with his argumentative states, that kind of pompous vibe that you get from a tapping riff like that, bringing that kind of to the forefront. I understand that maybe having some kind of relevance to the song. But on the whole, in terms of the flow, in terms of just whether or not there's anything relating the two parts together, it's just not there. And I get when you're going to start a song, you want to grab the listener. This is the last song on the record. They're fucking there. You already got them. But the establishing something that is immediately attention grabbing, good idea. Just tossing it to the wayside right away on the second riff of the song, not a great idea. If you lose someone like that, or if you confuse them to the point where they're just going to want to, they're not going to identify with the song or try to even understand what you're trying to do with the song. You're fucking with the audience in a way where it's not going to help them try to figure out what you're trying to do. And I write confusing music, but I do it in a way where I try to make sure that the themes relate to each other and still belong in that same song. Like that intro could have been played on any of these songs on this record, or any other song in the like second half of the Death catalog. And I know that you can you can confuse the listener on purpose in a way where you're going to be using that to develop a theme you're trying to carry. If you want to get across madness, psychosis, any of that, you're going to want to put together an arrangement that is not going to be typical, and it's going to take the audience on some kind of journey that reflects that. I totally get that. This, to me, doesn't feel like it's deliberate in terms of how to get an arrangement to manipulate an audience. It feels to me like it's a weakness, that he just took two parts that he liked and just smashed them together without any kind of forethought. And that's something that I started picking up on a lot with the later Death material, where I think the riffs are cool. I'm a guitar player, I'm a metal guitar player. You're going to be hard pressed to find a metal guitar player that doesn't at least like the riffs happening in the band Death. And I do like that stuff, but man, even like I said, even as a kid, I was in high school thinking like, man, that shit doesn't make sense. Like it's just weird. And when you're a kid, you don't question shit like that. You're just like, oh, this band is, an authority over their sense of music, their sense of art. They're presenting it to us in a way that's confident enough to put it on record, where every single nook and cranny of their arrangements has been poured over in a way where it's deliberate. It has to be deliberate. After developing, the next couple of decades of songwriting myself and getting immersed in local scenes, getting immersed in how music actually works, I'm starting to realize that I just don't think that's true, that a lot of bands don't bring a confident product to the table. They bring something to the table that they think has cool parts, and they just smash them together and present it to you and hope that you're not going to notice it. Well, I notice it, and I'm sure that a lot of people that are detractors of Death's legacy notice it as well. This is kind of a whipping boy for like the cult death metal scene. A lot of people are not going to give Chuck Schuldiner respect. I think he does deserve respect, but there's a lot more to just the charisma of him as a frontman and guitar player than just those elements. You have to look at him with a critical eye. It sucks that he died young. Obviously, that's never a great thing, but it doesn't make him immune to criticism. And to have this long of a legacy where people are going to be talking about Death forever in the metal genre, and to know that there's these songwriting weaknesses that are going to be glossed over, never discussed by anyone else, I think that's a shame. After I'm dead and gone, I want to be remembered for the stuff I fucking blew ass at, and in addition to the stuff I did well. I think it's only fair. No one should be deified in Death. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. All right, the next one we're going to look at is Empty Words from the Symbolic record. So here we have, once again, he wanted to develop an intro. What is the purpose of an intro? An intro should be to establish a mood, establish a motif, anything that will denote that this song has this characteristic where it belongs on this record for this reason. This intro, it doesn't have any kind of continuity with the next part. It comes in the middle of the phrase, which, I get it. If you want to jar the audience, that's a good way to do it. I just don't see the need for it. I don't see why you would have this kind of like, another ethereal sounding intro, very chill, very relaxed, and then you kind of just come in out of nowhere with the first actual riff of the song. Like, what purpose does it serve? If that whole intro was not there, would the song be any different? Would it be better? Most likely. I mean, that theme doesn't come back. Why is it there? And why does it jump in the middle of the phrase like that? Like, the song, this is not a very energetic death song. I actually really like a lot of the riffs in it. I like the chorus of this song. The part before the chorus is another train wreck. They just completely stop everything they're doing and then have like a pre-chorus, which is cool on its own, but not cool in terms of how the arrangement works. But I just don't understand the mentality. I don't understand it. I mean, I just don't see the continuity. I don't see why you would want to. I don't know why you would have an intro like this and then have it not relate to the rest of the song. Have the tempo change, have the mood change, have the dynamics change. I mean, that's something that you want to do. If you're gonna do that, it's a lot more effective later on in a song. Establish a mood. Get them to feel at home with what you're doing, and then change the dynamic. But when you do it, have purpose behind it. To me, this is just like, oh, I've got this kind of cool sounding intro. Why not just slap it at the beginning of the track? What's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst that could happen is, 20 years down the line, some asshole on YouTube is going to call you out for it. And unfortunately, that's all the repercussions it's going to be. But people should be aware of this kind of stuff because, this to me is showcasing that that deep inspiration you get that draws you to make music. It's not coming from the same wellspring. If you're going to come out here and just throw some like hackneyed shit together, that erodes your sense of inspiration. That shows me that you don't have it all planned out, that you're just kind of throwing stuff up in the air and seeing what happens. That doesn't make you a fully grounded artist. It just makes you someone with a few cool ideas that you wanted to throw out and just see what happened. And, because the riffs aren't terrible, people caught on to it and they like it. I get it. But in terms of an arrangement device, it's not successful. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, the last one we're going to do is Bite the Pain from their last record, The Sound of Perseverance. So you're seeing a theme here now, I imagine, where he clearly likes to write intros that have a vibe that doesn't mesh with the next riff, doesn't mesh with the rest of the song. As a kid, I was in high school, I liked that intro a lot, but I always thought, like, man, he's going to cut out and just do a 4 count in the next part? That's fucked up. What's going on here? Like, at this point, he's a veteran. He's had this death metal, career for how long? You should be able to understand like what works and what doesn't work. And if this kind of shit going on this long, this many records in your career is a result of not hearing criticism, not wanting to hear criticism, and just saying I'm going to do this shit my way no matter what. But it still doesn't make sense to me. And I know that there's going to be a fallacy in me putting myself in any other kind of writer's shoes, but I do understand that artistic mindset enough to know that there are certain things that you do in the arrangement process that will indicate that you have this inspired viewpoint that you're trying to express. And there's things that will showcase to me that you didn't have a plan fully fleshed out when you presented this to the rest of your guys, or when you tried to get it recorded, or however it came to fruition. And like I said, the parts by themselves are fine. The riffs aren't bad. That intro has that kind of trope where the guitar line continues to loop while the bass line changes, giving it different kind of emotional colorings. It's a successful trope. But then you stop and everything again, go into the next part that has no relation in terms of mood, tone, dynamics, tempo. It just doesn't become a song that way. And if anyone were to say to me, the thing that's a shame about this is if someone were to say to me, hey, hum the riff from Bite the Pain, I would either think of the chorus because of the vocals are memorable, or I would think of this intro, which has no relation to the rest of the song. And it shouldn't have that effect. And it might have that effect because it sticks out like a sore thumb in a way where it doesn't represent the rest of the arrangement, it doesn't represent the rest of the tone. But there we are. That's how the song is going to manifest itself in my head, and most likely in many other people's heads as time moves on. But yeah, I just wanted to take a quick showcase of 5 different songs from Chuck Schuldiner that clearly have songwriting issues and still have stood the test of time because no one gives a fuck about that stuff. But I think that these are the kind of things that if we were to correct moving into the next era of whatever metal's going to represent, obviously the modern metal guitar player is going to follow a lot of these kind of same patterns because they don't have a fully fleshed out vision beyond technique. But if we were to showcase that metal can be cohesive and it could represent a unified thought that has some kind of artistic integrity behind it, we can most likely separate ourselves from the pack of what the modern player is doing. And I don't know how much of an influence Chuck Schuldiner had on the modern death metal guitar player. That's way more rooted in metalcore and the shit that happened after the turn of the century. But it's clear that when you introduce a charismatic frontman that has a kind of sound developed, and he does have a sound developed. If you hear a Chuck Schuldiner solo, you know it's him right away. When you have that kind of like backing to you, where everyone knows who you are based on what you're presenting to the table superficially, a lot of the stuff that represents the true depth of what you're trying to do will be ignored. And it's always going to be shrouded by the fact that he died young. People aren't going to care about his songwriting flaws. And I watch, they have this like death orchestra thing happening now where, it's a full-on string section playing these kind of songs. And Jesus Christ, I would hate to be the fucking conductor for that shit. You're like, okay, here's a part that is going to be a complete tempo shift and has no relation to the next part. Hopefully you guys all stay on. That kind of stuff I imagine would be really difficult to dictate. And I imagine it was really difficult to dictate to his bandmates when he presented it originally. But yeah, I mean, you have iconic riffs, iconic parts, but you throughout the entire Death catalog, I'd be hard-pressed to say you have iconic songs. And that's going to be his legacy to me. I would like to know what other people think his legacy is. I would like to know if they think, well, this statement in song form and album form or whatever is what Death and Chuck Schuldiner are. But to me, it's someone that had a sound, had some good ideas in compact microcosmic form, but couldn't get a long form statement out. So that's kind of all I wanted to say on that. Thanks for listening.